Jerry, over your lifetime, you've acquired a few titles: Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowler. This latest title with the honorary degree. Where does this one fit in for you?
Awesome, just awesome. The whole ceremony of pomp and pageantry, and going back thousands of years, probably, and the whole, it was just a exciting time, and I was a little stunned by it. Enjoyed it. Tremendous honor, tremendous day, tremendous time up here, and memories from long ago, and a thousand different memories that I found out I was drafted here. Came out of the class, and Wayne Walker is waiting for me. You got drafted. Wow, super. What round? 4th round. Wow, great. Who drafted me? Green Bay. Where's Green Bay? I had no idea where it was. We got a map. Oh, it's back by Chicago. It's on a lake. Oh, it's a big lake. Oh, it's Lake Michigan. That is a big lake. So it was a wonderful time, and the whole journey has been full of great days and great surprises. And who'd have ever thought we'd have been a world champion 5 times? That just no one had ever done that, right? And there was very little reason to suspect we would. We're just a bunch of guys, and so it's been quite a ride.
I was going to say, do you ever stop and think back about kind of where you started and what you were able to achieve, and then through your lifetime, and just kind of everything that had to line up in order for that to happen?
Yeah, and it was it's kind of like somebody else is in charge, and they're just, hey, you got a deal here or deal there, and people come up to me that I don't know, and like Dick Zanuck, the movie guy. I was down in Acapulco with my wife and a buddy and his wife, and we were there for 3 days and getting ready to go home. And Dick Zanuck came up and said, Jerry, we're having a party at my dad's house tonight for his birthday and a New Year's Eve party. Would you like to come? Sure. So Helen Gurley Brown, David Brown, Joanne Zanuck, and Dickie Zanuck, and I brought 2 or 3 of my buds, and one of them had a 55-foot Chris. So we go sailing on Acapulco Bay after the party, after 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock. And then Dickie's got to go back to LA to work on a film, so his home, the rented home is available for 2 weeks. Do we want to move in? And we'll go look at it. It's got 4 servants. It's got a pool. It's got a cable car running down to the ocean, and yeah, this will work. So we stayed there for 2 weeks, but I didn't plan it. I didn't have a dream about it even. So, and things have just in the book was, Jerry, you want to do a book? What do you mean, do a book? Write a book. What the hell do I know about writing a book? And hey, it's a bestseller. Well, of course it is. What else would you do? But it's just so serendipitous, just shake my head. And it's been, I got a picture of me as a 3-year-old in Jordan, Montana. Jordan was 222 people at that time. And I had on a shirt made out of a flour sack that my mom had sewn and worked up for me. And I had a pair of pants that were rolled up about 6 times and cut down, and 3-year-old looking out at the world, and I'm saying, that kid had no idea where he was going and what he was going to do. And if he had an idea, he wouldn't have believed it. So it's been a great journey.
At the ceremony yesterday, what was your message to the students?
Basically, that you can if you will. There's a price to pay for achievement. There's a price to pay for success. And if you're willing to pay the price, make the sacrifice, do the things you have to do, prepare yourself properly, commit yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, discipline to stay on the line and do the job right. You don't do things right once in a while, you do them right all the time. There's echoes of Lombardi, of course, So, but those are wonderful philosophies and beliefs, and they work in the business world if you work. but there is a price to pay for it, and if you're not willing to pay the price, you can do what you want to do.
I saw a couple of days ago where you were asked what you would tell Aaron Rodgers, and if I characterized this correctly, you said that he should realize that he's a beloved member of a successful team, and he ought to just enjoy the rest of his career in that capacity.
It took a long time to get where he is, and to get as good as he is, and his teammates were part of that journey, and they helped him a great deal. And I think it's time for Aaron to think things out again and go back to Green Bay and get on about his business. Certainly the financial arrangements are way beyond any dream. Our whole organization, you could have got Coach Lombardi and all the coaches and all the players and all the guys on the taxi squad and people who might be drafted 5 years from now. You could have paid them all with their own salary, right? So I don't know that he really appreciates where he is and how well he's done. He's he's a sensational kid. He's just a great guy. I enjoy him a lot. I've visited with him several different times, and seems like a really nice person.
The other thing that struck me in reading that story is you said, if I've got this correctly, that he was getting by on 80% of his talent, and you would like to see him go all in 100%. Well, I mean, you were 100% of yourself. What do you see that he can do 20% better than he's already doing?
You know, there's that emotional part of the game is a critical thing. I've told the story about throwing the shot put in the state tournament where I threw 30 feet the first throw. I was choked. I was the first thrower up, and I'm tight and I'm overwhelmed by the crowd and I'm choked. And it goes 30 feet. They can't find a spot. It's so short they can't mark it. And so I get 20, 30 minutes of, gee, it was way up there. Well, you got to mark it. Well, I didn't see where it went. Well, you got to mark it. You didn't scratch. And they said, Jerry, we're going to have to give you another throw. Now I get mad. I get angry. I get frustrated. And I go 51-10 the next throw. So I'll go from 30 to 51-10 because I got emotion in it. I got anger and I got frustration. I got adrenaline, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I wondered about that for years, going home to Sandpoint after the meet. I'm going, did this impact this? Double it? Is that possible? I mean, how in the world can that be? And so that worked for me, and that maybe doesn't work for all people. Some people need to be cool, they need to be calm, they need to be collected and quiet. I needed anger, intelligent anger, not stupid anger that's going to cause a penalty or cause your team to have a problem. So I think emotion can improve if it's handled properly. I think it can improve your performance. And if you have it across the whole team, then you have a tremendous improvement in your performance. And I think that's what the Green Bay Packers of the Lombardi era had. They had emotion, and they had a lot of it.
I'm wondering, kind of going off what Peter had asked about, does the town look familiar? Maybe not the town in itself, but like the community and how personal it is. Is there something about Moscow that's kind of enduring in that way that you come back and
Yeah, I had a love affair with the university in Moscow, and it was a highlight of my life up to that point. And the guys from all over, you know, and the teammates and the bonds that you form with a group of guys like that, and wonderful memories and wonderful times. And I could have done some things different academically, but I was not focused on academics at that time. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience to be at the university in such a wonderful fountain of learning and information and intelligence and gifts and those kind of things. So it was a real treat. No one in my family had gone to college before. So I was the first one, and it was just more than I could dream. It was just a wonderful, wonderful trip. Plus, I had my scholarship, and they were helping take care of me pretty good. So it was a fun time.
When you wrote Distant Replay, I think you kind of became the caretaker of the Packers' legacy and the legacy of that whole era of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And then, recently, your Hall of Fame speech, you can if you will, very insightful. I mean, now you're a sage. What's it like to be a sage?
I had a little humbling to start with, and confusing, and I'm looking at myself in that garb yesterday, and thinking back to the early 1800s or 1600s, or when did they start wearing these kind of things, and how long have they been doing it, and what am I doing here? It was a very interesting and very thrilling experience. It was just really a lot of fun to be there, and you kind of make believe too. There's a certain aspect to it that's not believable. This can't really be happening. I'm not up here getting a doctor's degree for what? For football? So it was wonderful. It was a great thrill and a great time. And Dr. Green was just a prince. He was just a wonderful guy, and couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been more solicitous and helpful, and on and on.
Sorry, I was gonna say, if you were able to go back in time and give your 18, 19, 20-year-old self some advice now, what might that advice be?
I lived my life pretty much the way I wanted, and I changed professions about a half a dozen times because it was interesting. And I don't know that I would have stayed into one knothole or one cranny crook for the rest of my life. I started out investing in apartments, and I owned a third of a 100-unit apartment in Tulsa, a 98-unit, and a 1,250 unit. So we had almost 1,500 units, and so I owned about 500 of them. And I thought about staying there and being in the apartment business for the rest of my life, and ended up with 10,000 apartments and an annuity, and just do what you want. The little voice said, I don't want to rent apartments. And I had already started a commercial diving business down in New Orleans and Louisiana. The buddy of mine from Morgan City, about 90 miles southwest of New Orleans, and I started a diving business, servicing the oil industry. We sold it 4 years later, made almost $1 million from it, and okay, what are you going to do now? And somebody's mentioned the coal business. Well, I'll go look at that. So I had some friends in Indiana and across the river from Kentucky, and went out there, and there was a strike going on, so there was an awful lot of young folks getting in the coal business, and so we got in the coal business for 4 or 5 years, and that was fun. Made it very successful. I made quite a bit of money doing that, and then I found a heavy oil deposit in South Kentucky, and they had like 1 billion barrels of oil in it within the formations in a 19,000 acre deed. So I just thought, well, why not? So I found a guy from Milwaukee, the chairman of Northwestern Mutual, was a friend that I'd had spoken for and played golf with, and Fergie, anybody that knows anything about heavy oil? Well, he says, I do know a guy that would know. I said, who is it? And he says, the chairman of Exxon. And he says, I'll call him. So he called him, and I called the chairman and talked to him, and the chairman introduced me to one of his chem engineers that was thinking of taking early retirement, who was a brilliant human being. So we established a test spot, producing 60 barrel of oil a day off of 5 well injectors. And we're selling it for $36, and we're producing it for $16. So we're making $20 a barrel, and we got 1 billion barrels of reserves. So I own about 1/3 of 1 billion barrels of oil. And I was a billionaire for about 6 weeks, maybe. And then the Saudis said, gee whiz, you know, boys, we know you're having a tough time, and the price of oil is way too high, and we know it, and we're reducing it to $9 a barrel. And they left it there for about 15 years, right? And all the heavy oil faded away. But it just, it wasn't out of necessity, it was out of curiosity more than anything, that I wanted to explore and experience other games or other plays and things like that. And it was a bit of a challenge, which was probably something I needed at that time, but it seemed to be the thing to do. You know, it just, you know, well, that's interesting. Let's go take a look. So I was fortunate to, you know, to be able to do that, and I left a lot of money on the table everywhere I went. I left it too early. I was right there with getting to the big stuff, and I'd go somewhere else. But I'm still enjoying the life. I'm still enjoying the journey. I'm having an incredible experience here this weekend. I just came from Green Bay, where we had a 3-day gathering for a charity. A bunch of folks, 700 people for dinner, and we raised a couple $1 million for a company, or a school called Rawhide, which is handling kids who are having trouble. And they take them and board them and teach them and bring them up and grow them and help them out. So that was a wonderful experience to be a part of that. So the presents just keep coming down the trail, right? And just this is just a present for me. It's just wonderful to have it happen.
Do you have a routine every time you come back to Moscow? Is there some place or that you always want to hit and want to see every time you come back?
And we had some wonderful times here, and I'm mostly with my teammates, and an awful lot of them are gone now. But you remember, there was either Ben's or Keith's. There was a tavern across from the on the boulevard there, and we had the Friday afternoon club, and so we took dues, and we had a ladies auxiliary group, and we allowed a few ladies to come into the club, and War and Peace was a big film at that time, and so we decided to have a War and Peace afternoon. So we took the beer pitchers and the glasses and everything and emptied them first, of course, and then threw everything into the middle of the room. We organized the chairs around the outside, so we had a pile of glass about this high. And of course the manager was all upset. Don't worry about it, we'll pay for it. We got it all taken care of. You just buy some new stuff. Coach Staley, Skip, called me, wanted to talk to me. What the hell is this Friday afternoon stuff? But they did it. So I got my tail chewed pretty good, and there were no more Friday afternoon club meetings. But a wonderful memory. It was a fun moment, you know, and but everybody joined in, and we were young knotheads and just having a good time.
I think about kind of where you came from, Jordan, Montana, Sandpoint, Idaho, Moscow, Idaho, small communities. Does it give you a sense of pride that you can be an example of someone who's come from a really small area and achieved such greatness athletically?
You know, I hadn't really thought that way. I love the small towns. I was tickled to death when I arrived in Green Bay. There were maybe 40, 50,000 people in all of Green Bay, right? And it was just perfect for me. I had been lost in Chicago or New York or LA or 1,000 other places, it seems like, but I was made to be in Green Bay, and it was a wonderful experience. We go 1-10-1 my first season, the worst record in the history of the franchise, and the natives are a little restless. We go down and have a beer. You guys are drinking too much. You ought to practice more. You looked pretty bad last week. And they're critics, and they're giving us all kinds of tips and whatnot, so you had to be kind of careful about where you went. And you couldn't blame them. We played the Baltimore Colts that year, and we got beat 56-0. And they had a pony that they ran around the stadium every time they scored. We damn near killed him. but we had a great time. I mean, it was a wonderful year, and all the guys were great, and Horning and McGee and Fuzz and Forrest and on and on and on. But 1-10-1 was not real hot. And then Mr. Lombardi arrived, and the world changed and turned over, and it was a much more difficult team, but a much more rewarding team. We did have to pay the price, and we had a fellow named Hog Hanner, was a defensive tackle from Arkansas. He's a Razorback, and Hog was about 280, something like that, and we got into our calisthenics, and it seemed to be the object of the calisthenics to see how many guys would drop and how soon they would start dropping, right? Well, Hog dropped pretty early, and they hauled him into the hospital, dehydration, heat prostration, exertion, whatnot. And that after they sent him back to dorm the next morning, and he went to practice, and he went to the hospital again in the afternoon, and he went to practice in the morning, and he went to the hospital in the afternoon. He did that for 3 days. And there were other guys that were passing out. They were just losing consciousness. They'd be standing in line at the chow line after the morning practice and before the afternoon practice, keel over. And Coach Lombardi was a pretty tough guy. We're in a scrimmage one time, and Lionel Aldrich, our defensive end, breaks a leg the week before. So he'd been 8-9 days with a broken leg, and he's trying to run, and he comes by our scrimmage area, and he's hippity hopping along and kind of getting it and not getting it. And Coach looks up and says, "Aldrich, the bone you broke is not a weight-bearing bone. You don't even need the damn thing. Now run on it." And we looked at one another and said, "A non-weight-bearing bone in your leg? Is that possible?" Didn't matter, it was possible. It's what he said, what we were supposed to do. So he was a tough taskmaster, and you had a tendency to play with those little hurts. Like I busted a couple of ribs in San Francisco a week before an LA game, and I see the doc. "Oh, you're all right, don't worry about it, it's not a problem." It really hurt. Don't worry about it. So I play that week against LA and Merlin comes up after the game and says, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "What's wrong?" He's a good pal. We've been doing some things together. "I got a couple busted ribs." "I knew something was after you, and so he turned away and was disgusted with me. So I get back to Green Bay, go see my doc. I got 2 busted ribs. I go see Coach Lombardi. I'm in the locker room, and he's walking through, and I go over and get in his face, and I said, "Coach, you know those sore ribs I had?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "I had 2 busted ribs." Looking for an attaboy or way to go or good job or something. And he goes, "No blank." He says, "Don't hurt anymore, do they?" Guess not. Been 2 weeks, right? So you learn to play with those things and get by with them, and to the extent you can. And we had some times when I couldn't, and I missed a fair amount of time with injuries, problems.
When you talk to contemporary players and you're telling them these stories, what do they want to know about them? What's the key thing they want to know about your era?
they want to know what the team attitude was like, and if we had any idea how to win, what they could do to win. And the emotion is the thing I focus on mostly, and I know it's not for everybody. It's not maybe some of your wide receivers need to be calm. Maybe your running back needs to be calm and not get too worked up. In the linemen, you got big guys to take care of, and a lot of violence in there that is rarely seen or understood, and it works really well for me, and it worked. I every game I would get myself. I'd start on Wednesday night actually, and I'd imagine that the guy had shot my dog, burned my house, killed my children, raped my wife, and he's gonna pay. He's gonna pay. So I'd go for about an hour of that, and then Thursday night maybe an hour and a half, and Friday maybe a couple, and Saturday night a couple, and then get up Sunday morning, and I'm angry. Don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to look at anybody. I just want to line up and whack the guy, right? So it's the way I work now. It's my job.
Jerry, before I forget, I'm just curious, the ring that you're wearing right there.
That's the Hall of Fame ring, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's number 314. So I am number 314 in the hall. And probably, golly, I think they've been doing it for 100 years, so probably half of those guys are gone. But it's a brotherhood and a wonderful feeling back in Canton. Go back every year for the induction ceremony and the BS. You know, a lot of guys you know and you've heard about and getting acquainted with. And so it's a wonderful experience. Again, it's one of those things that I've about given up on it. You know, I'd nominated 10 times, and I got angry and got my lip out, and I don't care. And then I got philosophical about it. What the hell? It's been a wonderful ride. Been a great experience. I've been very fortunate. I've won Super Bowls, championships. Been made the all-time 50-year team with the Packers, and the all 25-year, and all this and all that, and in the All-Pro 7 times, depending upon who you look at. And so I just felt that I had had a wonderful ride, and I really had no complaints. If I didn't make the Hall of Fame, fine. If I made it, fine. But it wasn't going to ruin my life, and it wasn't going to change my life. But it did change my life. It was much more than I anticipated.
When you look forward, what's next for you? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish next?
I got one project that I've been thinking about for a long time. It's the Lombardi movie. A real, legitimate, exact, precise depiction of that particular point in time and that team and those guys. I'd love to do that. And that's, if I can. I've already started feelers out a little bit, and we had a group of guys about 10 years ago that worked on it for a year or so, and we had a friend that's worth about $12 billion, and we took the project to him and laid it out, and he said, "Show me the script. I mean, I want to see the script." And he could have made 100 Lombardi movies if he'd wanted to, but we never got the script to him. I was with an attorney from LA that should have done it. I should have done it. 5 or 6 guys should have done it. And I now have 9 scripts at home that I've collected over the ensuing years, and I would like to do that right. Because there's a lot of people when you talk about getting angry and getting mad, they see a different picture than I see. I'm talking about a controlled anger, a controlled violence, an intelligent attitude, and there's nothing ugly about it. It's just juicing yourself, getting your body ready to play. But and sometimes that his harshness, his hard times are misunderstood a little bit too. He was trying to, we had spent a year of playing games and drinking beer and having a wonderful time with a coach that would let us do calisthenics like this, Okay, let's go, that's it. And so there's a price to pay for achievement, and he taught us that.
Given your upbringing, did you and Lombardi click pretty quickly? I mean, personality-wise? Ethics, stuff like that?
We got along. It was not always soft and easy. It sometimes got a little harsh. A couple examples. He was he's always watching everybody and everything, and I jump off sides. And I get some attention, and a little bit later I miss a block, and he comes running across the field. Concentration period of a college student's 5 minutes, high school is 3 minutes, kindergarten is 30 seconds, and you don't have that? So where's that put you? Put me checking my shoe shine, right? Oh boy, I'm never going to be able to play for this guy. And we get out of practice about 10 minutes later, and Bart and the wide receivers stay out for pass patterns and whatnot. So I get up to the locker room, and I'm thinking about where I'm going to play next, and I'm studying the pattern of the carpet, right? And I've been there about 40 minutes, wondering what I was going to do with my life, right? I'm never going to play for this guy, never going to make it. And he comes in the far end of the locker room, sees me, comes down there, slaps me on the back of the neck, messes up my hair. Son, one of these days you're going to be the best guard in football. Woo-boom! And he filled me with a burn, with a fire, with an energy, which he knew about, right? And I didn't know about, but it was a sensational feeling. And from that point on, I never got tired at practice. I pushed myself to the limit. And before, you kind of go through the motions, you kind of, you're in the middle of things, and you can kind of loaf a little bit and kind of run halfway and da-da-da. I started going full speed with everything I did, and so he appreciated that. And through my accidents and whatnot, he came up to the hospital, and very soft and very gentle and very quiet. Had another situation with my broken ribs. The all-pro teams were coming out, and Fuzzy and I had made all-pro, both of us on the same team. And there was a big article in the LA Times, and Coach got the article, and best guards in the NFL, we got the worst guards in football, the worst! And I just blow. It's just too much. And we're in a scrimmage, and I get in the huddle, and we always bend over. I don't bend over. I'm standing up, and I'm looking at him, and he won't look at me. Because if he looks at me, I'm going to charge him. I'm going to whale him. I'm to the point where I'm out of control. So Bart calls the play. We go up the line of scrimmage, bend over a little bit at the waist. They run a play. I don't move. I stand back up, and I go back to the huddle area, and he's about where Matt is, maybe 15, 20 yards away. And he won't look at me. He's pacing back and forth, looking at the dirt, right? And I'm, just give me a shot. Just look at me once. Just do anything, right? And I'm going to bust your head. And nothing happened. And he wouldn't look, and he knew where we were. So I finally said, I'm out. I took myself out of the scrimmage, went down the sidelines. I'm pouting now. Nobody cares. Nobody loves me. And he waits about 15 minutes for me to cool down, and here he comes. Oh, I didn't mean you. Come on. What's wrong with you? You knew better than that. I wasn't talking to you. No, you said guards. I thought you said guards, and you said guard. Oh, yeah. So he apologized in his way, as best he could, and reestablished the communication and made up for it. But he would do that. And he also, if he chewed you, he would never leave a meeting or practice with that on your mind. He would somehow, some way, unless he wanted you gone, sometimes he'd give up on a guy. Hernandez, you're not only fat and slow, you're stupid. And so he was gone, say goodbye. But the guys that he wanted to make emotional, to feed that emotion to, that energy, that fire, that power, he would come up and give you a hug and hold on to you and tell you you were beautiful or whatever he had to tell you to get you to play. And that would inspire. My son Jordan was about 6 years old, and we were going to go fix some wood. And I don't like to whale the kids. I figure I ought to do it twice a lifetime maybe, and for their safety. But Jordy came out, oh, man, I've got to work, and he's just all snotting and crying and whatnot. And I got a wheelbarrow full of wood, and I take it over by the garage, and he's supposed to stack it. Well, I wait a little bit and finally go over there, and he's got about 6 pieces stacked. And I can either whale him now, take my belt off, or I can try some of that positive stuff. So I look at the wood, and I said, Jordy, that's perfect. It's right against the garage. They're right together, nice and tight. Perfect. You did a great job. Dumped the wheelbarrow, took a little time, come back. Every stick is stacked. He's sitting on a round, got his legs crossed, flipping his foot, right? And every time I would dump a load of wood, he would pile it in the right place at the right time immediately, right? So an hour later, the wood is all stacked and all cut, and we've got my hand, and we're walking in the house. Mom, Dad and I took care of that old wood pile. That wasn't nothing. We did this, and feels good about himself. He's proud of himself. He feels good about everything. Wow, wow. That's what Lombardi did to us. The same thing, right? And it's a fascinating thing to create a positive attitude like that, and all of a sudden you create energy and performance and all kinds of things. So the inner sanctum here is a little bit goofy sometimes.
Now, I imagine none of you guys are stupid, and you played for Lombardi for a long time. So fairly quickly, I would think you would realize, all you guys would realize, okay, he's doing this for effect. We know why he's doing this. How did your relationship change over the years that you played for him, where you could still get the same performance out of him?
Well, you didn't sit down and have a chat with the coach. You know, he was a busy man. And if you got your backside chewed, you weren't actually very anxious to chat with the man, right? And so you were going about your business, and you're trying to perform as best you can and try to do a good job, and more in tune with the other guys and whatnot. And there were just moments where he would come into your life and burst into things, and they weren't very often. He had 50 guys that he had to consider, and we had a big old boy named Bob Hyland that was about 260 from Massachusetts or somewhere, and he was a 6'5", 6'6", just a physical specimen. And our meeting started at 10 o'clock, and if you weren't in the chair at 9:45, you were late. So Lombardi time was 15 minutes early. So coach is taking roll call, and Hyland, where's Hyland? Not here. Where is he? I don't know, coach. So Lombardi paces back and forth a little bit, and about 5 minutes go by, and Hyland comes in, and he's 10 minutes early on normal time, but he's late according to Lombardi time. And Coach Lombardi's up at the front of the room, and Hyland comes, and there's a big pillar in the room, and he goes over and he gets a chair, and he gets that pillar between he and Lombardi, and he sits in the chair, puts his head down, and starts checking his shoe shine. And Lombardi breaks into a giggle. It is this big old boy just kind of cowering behind a chair, the pillar. So we didn't spend a lot of time chatting. He came up to the hospital when I was recovering from a variety of different things, and had a very soft, gentle touch. And I went to see him a week before he passed in Washington, and he was in his bed with his fists clenched, and he was fighting it. He believed he could beat it emotionally, mentally, and he was fighting it. And I touched his arm and said, "Coach, I know where you are. I just wanted to tell you how much you meant to me, how much I love you, and I appreciate the time we spent together." And he kind of shook his head, and I said, "I'm going to leave you now. I know where you are." And you don't want to take any more energy away from a person like that. So I know that very well. So I started to leave, and I got to the door, and the nurse came in. "Jerry, come back a minute. Come back. Come back. Show her your stomach." I showed her all my scars, right? He said, "See there? He beat it." So he was using me as an example. Okay, you were dismissed, right?
Kind of talked about advice you would give these guys, but maybe even before your pro career, what was the best advice you got here or learned yourself here that you kind of took?
Well, it came from that sophomore year, you can if you will. My line coach was a fellow named Dusty Klein, and I was an awkward child. I was growing rapidly and stumble, fumble, and fall, right? And I wanted to play fullback because my brother had been a back. And I talked to our Cotton Barlow, our coach, and say, "Cotton, I'd like to be a fullback." "Well, fine, you can play fullback, but you'll sit on the bench. But if you wanted to play tackle, for instance, you could probably start." "Well, I don't want to sit on the bench. I'd love to start. That would be great." So I got to start, but I was really awkward and just having a difficult time, and didn't know the game and didn't know much about anything. And Dusty Klein, my line coach, came over and said, "Son, you got big hands and you got big feet, and you're going to grow into them. Another year or two, you're going to be a heck of a ball player." And kind of picked me up a little bit and started to walk away. And he turns with a kind of a Mona Lisa smile, just a slight smile there, and he goes, "You can, if you will." And he walked away. And I said, "Can what? If I will what?" And he never answered me. He just walked away and let me think about it. So that was something that got me going. And I started thinking about, if you will. Well, I want to play. I don't want to be out here just, wasting time. I'd like to play. I'd like to help out. I'd like to be good. So that was a big start. That was the first germ of a burn, a hunger, a want, a fire, or something like that. And it developed. That shot put thing was a, seminal moment also. It just couldn't understand it. It took me a long time to understand it. And I'm not sure that I ever understood it, exactly.
Do you keep in touch with, or do you follow or have interest in the current Idaho team?
I haven't been close to them lately. I did for a long time, and I came to a lot of ball games and hung out a lot. And so many of the guys are gone now that on both teams that you don't know, who's left and where they are. Most of my really good guys that I hung with and spent time with are on the other side now.
One quick last one. You mentioned you'd love to, for a project, a movie on Lombardi. Have you given any thought about who you'd like to play Lombardi?
I want De Niro. He had a lot of fire, a lot of anger, a lot of emotion. Kevin Costner, I got to talk to a little bit about it. He could play it. we were in New York for the Super Bowl, and went in early and did media row, a lot of interviews and stuff. And on Wednesday, I'd been there since Monday, and I'm dead. I'm just really whooped. And I'm in bed at 6 o'clock in the evening, and the guys with me are down at a restaurant. And Kevin is in the restaurant. So they start talking to him, and Jerry, Kevin wants you to come down and have a drink. You tell Kevin I am in bed, and I'm going to stay in bed, but I love Dances with Wolves. And Kevin got on the phone and said, "Nice block, Jerry." So that was kind of fun and kind of cute, and he knows who I am, and we could probably get a meeting with him. And I've just really finished this documentary and got it padded into place, and the Packers are going to have a DVD of it and put it on their website, and so we're going to be marketing it and doing that bit for a while. But I'm going to start. I'm already thinking about the storyline and what's the first scene, what's the opening scene, and it's going to be, I don't know, but you could use, if you're not willing to make the price, if you're not willing to sacrifice and do the things you have to do to win, there are trains and planes and buses leaving here every day, and some of you may be on them. And if you're not willing to sacrifice to win, then get the hell out. Which was a direct quote.
I guess it begs the question, if you want De Niro to be Lombardi, who do you want to play you?
I'd like Horning to play me. The Golden Goat. I don't know about that. I hadn't thought about that. There is a kid out there, though, that the people have said, I can't think who he is right now, his name, but said that there's a young guy that is in the films that looks like me, and they've suggested a name, but I can't think who it is. It hasn't done a great deal of stuff, but and there's a lot of stuff already done about Lombardi, so I don't know if we can get it done, but that's my project. Yeah.
Well, they tell us we're all out of time.
All right.
Thank you for your time, Jerry.
Thank you.
My pleasure.